Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think it was Councillor Cassidy. How Councillor Cassidy already mentioned the one in the Lodge car park, and the problem of taking a parking space away. On top of that, the visual impact there is not.
Get you come closer to the microphone. We're losing your voice.
Farthing sign above it, but that really stands out like a sore thumb. And the other one is even worse. In front of the North Berwick Fry, it's seating area there. There's benches there. There's chairs there. There is one green electricity cabinet, but apart from that, there are planters, there's decorative trees around, there's trees there. It's a beautiful, nice place. And you put this grey and black structure into the middle of it. It just, I think it's criminal, sorry.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the objectors?
Yes, I'd like to say my general stand about this proposals. The three cabinets, the one to the north on Quality Street, that one will prevent either of the buildings or of a downpipe, which is in that locality. So putting a meter there could be counterproductive because there is a recessed downpipe between two buildings. It's either that or it's going to become a feature in a blind doorway, and it will prevent the maintenance of the blind doorway. I'm less bothered in the Community Council about the proposed cabinet to the south because on Quality Street, because it is an area which is absolutely full of clutter, and I think anybody who's not seen it before would wonder why there is just so much in the way of clutter in that part of town. It needs to have a good old look at and a good old repair. But I'm being a bit slightly whimsical about that. It's still an issue, adding something to an existing amount of things that are there. The one I'm most perturbed about is the one in the Lodge car park, because it will be placed hard up against what is a listed wall. That's a curtilage listed structure for the Lodge, I think. And not only will a space be lost, but there will be a tree that has to come out. And I haven't seen any advertisements or any applications to works. But the way that tree that's there can serve substantial equivalent of an island base put in with a thing on top. If we assume that you've shown for item 3, number A, if that's a form of construction, then the tree that's in the Lodge car park will be lost because all of its roots will be severed. So my objection is to do with that. Now, trees are very important in conservation, as you all know, and open spaces. So we have an open space and we have a tree being lost. So if you have to grant something for that part of it, please can you look somewhere else? I still don't agree with the scheme, but I say to you, please do it in a different way so you don't lose trees and you don't mess up the maintenance of a wall that needs to be retained. Thank you.
And finally, I'd just like to add my thoughts on it. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
The location of the meter to the north narrows that pavement, and that's the main direction between the High Street and the Seabird Centre. In the summer, the peak of the summer, you do get significant flows along there. The parking along that road, the camber of the road, means that the vehicles both park tight into the curb, but also leaning in towards the pavement. So the width of that road is substantially narrowed there by both factors. And you know, this morning we spoke about buggies and people going down there. That is definitely going to be a bottleneck along that already tight pavement that's too narrow. Along that area for the main drag down to a separate issue entirely, but certainly not narrowing it. The second one, the middle one by outside the chippy, again, you're now putting in place additional street furniture, which you should be looking to tidy it up, not to add to it. The other issue in terms of, do you actually need that meter? I know the applicant suggested that crossing to the meter that we were just talking about to the north would involve some risk, but in fact there's very few parking spaces there. There'd be very few trips. Have to cross there in any case. And the lodge car park, then clearly a loss of a tree would not be acceptable. So I support movement of that parking to somewhere else at that parking meter. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there any other questions for the objectors? Councillor Johnson, are you looking for an objection or just
No,
make
it's
a
not really
comment?
for the objectors, it's probably for
Right.
Becky. I've just looked on the chart and it says that the recording stopped at 2 minutes to 3. So it's just moving forward what's going to get posted if we've only got half a meeting.
It did, Councillor Yorkston, but then also on mine it said in the same minute that the meeting had started recording
Right,
again.
okay,
So
that's
I
fine.
believe we are recording. I didn't set it to stop. I'm not sure what went on, but I believe we're recording still. But thanks for raising
That's
it.
fine. No problems.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay. Right. There's no questions for the objectors. I now need to move to comments on this. Councillor McMillan.
Once again, the objectors' really helpful comments. I'd like to clarify a couple of things, and it's really about the wall, which I hadn't thought about, and I'm assuming that the loss of tree is covered by our landscape officer's comment, and it was just to ask our planners if they could maybe clarify what was happening around the wall and the potential loss of the tree.
Landscape officer or planning officer?
Well, I mean, I don't mind coming in first. So thanks, Councillor McMillan. Yeah, I mean, the meter is slightly offset from the wall, so I don't think there's really any concern about the need for access for maintenance. And with regards to the impact on the tree, that was, specifically raised by your landscape officer, and they were satisfied that the only impact would likely become from the foundations for the bollards, which would surround the surface that the meter sits, would be bolted to. And they've recommended that, let me just check. Yes, a certain hole boring method be used for the foundations for the bollard, and as long as that method is undertaken, which is included as a condition, one of the conditions at the end of the report, that it shouldn't lead to the loss of that tree. But happy if the landscape officer wants to come in to clarify.
Is the landscape officer available?
Good afternoon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can confirm that what the planning officer has said there, that using the auger post hole borer, we're satisfied that there wouldn't be adverse impacts on the tree, so hence the condition.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just go back to the positioning and number of the meters. I appreciate the comments that Mr. Cyphers gave to my question. I still think that's unnecessary to have both of them there. I agree with the comments that the objector made about the northern one. The whole setup there is wrong for a meter in that place. It's very, very narrow. And the one to the south, the middle one, there's enough clutter around there with the ice cream shop and the chip shop and the pub and everything else that adding in a meter is just going to add to that. And there's very few cars that actually park there. As of crossing the street, I appreciate Peter's comments, but hundreds of people do that every day and they don't seem to have any accidents. So, I mean, I don't see the need for all three there. So I just wondered if perhaps they could have another look at that one. But in general, I will not be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Finlay, there's no other comment. I'd just like to make comment. Obviously, the parking meter to the north, obviously on the site visit when we had a look yesterday, where the parking meter is going, and it's 300 millimetres from the wall out. If you look further down the street, there is a lamppost that is much further out than where this parking meter would be, so that there's not the same restriction. So anybody going down that street is going to find it difficult if they've got something wide, and this parking meter is not going to make it any worse than current situation. However, I do accept that, you know, this issue whether we need two on that street or not. So I mean, I will be supporting officers' recommendation, but I will be asking officers to review all the parking meters that we're approving today, and just to see if there could be a different position taken. But I will be supporting the application that's in front of us, but for them to have another look at the numbers that we've got proposed. Regarding the tree itself is currently vulnerable where it stands. We've got cars reversing in and out there. How that tree's never been hit into it might have been, but I didn't have a close look at it. Now, I think if this bollard system is put in there, they need to make sure that they can protect the tree so that the tree isn't damaged by vehicles moving in out there. And I think the space, although there's a car parking space removed, I think the balance of the space that still remains could be used for cycle parking on that further space. So I support the officer's recommendation in the paper, but I do encourage them to have a good look to see if there's any changes we need to make by the reduction in meters in the future. Okay, Councillor McMillan, sorry.
Thank you. I didn't mean to come in after you, but I'd echo again all that you've said. I thought the site visit was instrumental in just looking at the busyness of that corner by the roundabout. As I'd said, the previous Sunday of this week, I was there with elderly relatives and it was busy. And I do think the presence of a meter will just actually make people stop and think about parking. I note the point about clutter. On the other hand, it is an area that attracts many visitors, with the Quality Fry being recognised as an excellent provider of takeaway and Alanda being, you know, gold-winning award winners for ice cream. And I think almost there it's something that is about the nature of the town as a tourist attraction. And I think the presence of a meter there could play a role in making people think about how and where they park. I think the sighting of the three is interesting. You made the point yourself of the northerly one and the very fact of where it is close to that lamppost. But I think there's also a point that, you know, having a parking meter outside a shop that, you know, you might miss, or shops that might be missed, as somebody said, on the way to the Seabird Centre. It's another way of just reminding people that they need to pay for parking, and, you know, those shops are there, and good local shops that provide a service and indeed build a whole culture. So I'm hoping that, you know, the presence of meters will just change behaviour, encourage people to be more thoughtful. But just the very fact that they're there will point out the ways to other attractions in the town, the right of ways, the paths to the beach. They're all kind of instrumental in, you know, making landmarks and signposts on the way to important places around the town. Thank you. I'll be supporting the officers.
Thank you for that, Councillor Macmillan. Councillor Cassini.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I just want to ask you about the trees, because I see that the existing lime trees will have the protection, but then it goes on at point 5 to say only the round tree will be felled. And I just wondered, is there any different approach even to transplanting the thing? But in fact, it's just, especially if you look at them just now, they're incredibly beautiful, and I hate the thought of losing any trees at all. And I would be very grateful, although I would support this particular application, I'd be very grateful if we didn't lose any trees in the process.
That's something that we can ask officers to review as they go through this process.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comments to be made? No. Okay, could I now move to the vote on this and a roll call vote?
Thank you. If members could please indicate their vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Support.
Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert.
Grant.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor Macmillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. There were 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can we move on to item 6, please?
Item 6 is planning application 25/00762/P, and that's at St Andrews Street, North Berwick.
Okay, could officer give us a summary of the report, please?
Thank you. So planning permission is sought for the installation of 3 parking meters. One would be installed to the rear of the footway on the south side of St Andrew Street, close to the entrance to the Glebe car park, and the other 2 meters would be installed within the car park itself. There have been 6 objections to the application, and the Community Council also object to the application. It's a full assessment of proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any questions of the planning officer? Councillor Finlay? You're on mute, Councillor Finlay.
Sorry, schoolboy error. Could you just explain why, again, you require 2 meters so close to each other?
Planning officer? Or the transportation, sorry.
Yes, Chair. So the meters that we have in the actual Glebe car park, they are on 2 levels. The Glebe car park is on quite a slope, and so we have an upper level and a lower level as it's constructed. So the car parks internal to, or the meters internal to the car park have been positioned for people to access them. The meter that is actually on St Andrews Street itself is serving the street. That has a different tariff than what it has for the high street. So therefore, for not to have any dubiety of actually buying a tariff or buying a parking space for the car park, that they use the wrong machine. So therefore, that's the reason why we have got 2 machines so close. The one to the north is on the St Andrews Street, and that supports High St Andrews Street itself. And the one in the car park, or the 2 in the car park, are for the car park only.
Thank you. I know it's just a very minor point, but couldn't the second one in the car park be moved up to be opposite the third one, i.e. away from the street?
So the challenge that we have in this particular space is making sure that the public buy the right parking ticket for them, because there is a difference. So if you're actually going to stay within the St Andrews Glebe car park itself, that you get the first 15 minutes free. That was mitigation that was approved by council. But if you're parking on the road, you do not have that first 15 minutes free. So therefore you could have confusion where people are buying the wrong ticket for the wrong location. And so therefore we don't want to be accused of doing anything or gaining anything in that particular space by people buying the wrong location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any others for the officers? No. And again, on this application, the applicant's not looking to make any contributions, but he would answer any questions if members have it. And if there's no further questions for them, we can move to the objectors' views on this application.
My objections apply. For Si's wonderful explanation there, which under town and a wee scheme should have one ticket that suits all places. You've made it so complicated that people in St Andrews Street parking have to have a different ticket from the high street. That takes the biscuit, that really does. That's apart from my comments upon the actual cabinets. The two cabinets in the car park itself will result potentially in the loss of trees, but definitely in the loss of landscaping. So our place becomes just a bit more barren, a bit more dull, because nothing will be able to be done about it. We just have a less environment. Just, I mean, that's really idea, but hey ho. Thank you.
I'm not saying anything because there were offenders than this one. I'll save my breath.
I mean, the meters 1.5 meters high. We've discussed this before. There's looking towards St Andrew's Church. There's Blackadder Church. It's it's a carbuncle. It's sticking up 1.5 meters higher than anything does at the moment along St Andrew's Road. So that's why I object to it. I hadn't appreciated the different charging between the 2 meters. If I was new, because I hadn't thought about this one too much, then I'd probably go to the cheaper meter myself, because you seem to have wrapped them in a slight fence, which I would just walk around because that's what pedestrians do. It's a little bit strange decision to have 2 meters and such confusion for myself and plus visitors who are coming for the first time. Thank you.
Could I ask Mr. Forsyth just to clarify that about the tickets? If you get the car park ticket, that's a different arrangement in the car park. You have to be parked in the car park. If you're parked on St Andrew Street, you can't use that ticket. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. If you're buying a ticket for the car park, you're buying for the space in the car park. If you're buying a ticket for parking on street, then you're buying it for parking on street. That's basically what we're doing there.
Okay. Right. Is there further questions from members? Councillor Cassini.
Yes, thank you, convener. Mr. Forsyth, will it be made plain by signs in the car park and where the meters are on the street that exactly what you've said applies, that this for the car park only is for the car park, it doesn't apply to the street, and vice versa? Because I could see me making mistakes, and I can see a lot of people making mistakes and making I think we'd have to make it crystal clear, otherwise we could be accused of confusing people and making money out of it.
Yes, I know, and
Mr. Forsyth.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cassini, for your comments there and questions. And absolutely, we will make sure that the actual signage for the
The Glebe car park is very clear that you're buying a ticket, and it will have the various tariffs because you will pay for different times, and the price is the same for per half-hour slots, but it will be informed at the machines that it's for the Glebe car park. On St Andrew Street, then we will have signs as coming along St Andrew Street, pointing to where you will get a ticket to go and walk to for that parking on that particular street.
Thank
Hope that
you,
makes it
Mr.
clear.
Forsyth. Yep. Mr. McMillan, Councillor McMillan, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hampshire, leader,
Yeah.
chair, convener.
Yeah.
I just wonder if how much, in terms of the consultation and the comments that were received from the community around differentiation of charges, that differentiation that's just been pointed out was really in response to what people were saying to you in the consultation.
Yeah, thanks for the question there. So absolutely, as part of the package of mitigation that was recommended to council, that we took a view on the comments received back, in particular, for example, the first 15 minutes on the Glebe car park, where we had it pointed out that as part of a planning application that we received for the nursery for the school drop-off, that time the road services asked that the people who are dropping their kids off to park and use the Glebe car park. And it was only fair that as the council had made that recommendation, that we adjusted it to allow them to park the first 15 minutes, and hence everyone can park the first 15 minutes in that particular space. And also in other locations as well. For example, when we started the particular process, that we had 30 minutes free in the high street, that was extended to 45, and we adjusted the time and we adjusted the actual length of stay on the different locations right through the whole scheme. So yes, they have said, and we have listened, and we have adjusted things to try and accommodate everyone. It does have a slight impact on, but again, it's like if you visit any place or you go and use any place, then you need to read the signs on streets so you understand exactly how long you can park there and what the actual tariff is. So we will make sure that it's really well signposted as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's no further questions on this. Any comments and would like to make on the application? Mr. Finlay? You're still on mute, Councillor Finlay?
Sorry, just a very brief one. I think going back to Councillor Cassini's point, I think not only does the signage have to be very clear in the car park meters, but the signage has to be very clear on the one in St Andrew Street that meter is only for St Andrew Street, because I agree with Councillor Cassini, there is huge opportunity for confusion there, which is why it's perhaps suggested in my question that the southernmost meter of the one in the car park is moved south a bit to be opposite the third one, i.e. in the middle of the car park. So I just perhaps ask Mr. Forsyth to have a think about that one as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Finlay. Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Chair, I'm going to support the officers because I think this has been well thought through. I think the convenience to anyone parking for the 15 minutes, the drop-off point, the accessibility of meters in the car park. I think Mr. Forsyth makes a really good point that as drivers, we need to obey the highway code. We need to understand the highway code. We need to understand regulations about parking, about waiting, and in fact, you know, the presence of good signage, and I hope not too much signage. I'm not sure about the tree in this area, but I can't imagine that we've not thought about that. I think the difference between the street and the car park is a good thing in terms of making people think about where they park, in terms of access. My last visit to a Probus meeting in the church, I think it was about 11 o'clock, and it was very, very difficult to park. So ever since then, I've approached North Berwick, as you know from yesterday, in the bus, I'm very grateful to East Coast, to Eves and to Prentice for a great bus service. But I think everybody needs to think about where they park, what it costs, where they pay the meters, and that is just modern society wherever we are, wherever we go. Thank you. I'll be supporting.
Thanks for that, Councillor McMillan. There's no other comments. I'll just make a comment. I think the situation you have where you have on-street and off-street parking, it happens in many communities across the UK. The car parks for long stay are at a different price to on-street parking, and it's something that the public are aware that they need to look at the area they're parking and the meter that's associated with their parking. The site where the 2 parking meters are, the landscape officer has looked at it and is satisfied that the 2 meters could be located in that place without any damage to the trees in that location. So for that reason, I'm happy to support the recommendation of the officers in this report. And can I ask the clerk now to do the roll call vote on this application?
Thank you. If members could indicate their vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Support.
Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. There were 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you for that. Move on to item 7, please.
Item 7 is planning application 25/00363/P at St Margaret's Road, North Berwick.
Okay, could the author give a summary of the report, please? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Planning permission is sought for the installation of 2 parking meters at St Margaret's Road, North Berwick. There's been 13 objections received to this application, and the Community Council also object. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the condition at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of the planning officer? No? Okay. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Finlay. Yeah.
So it's more a question of the applicant, as I assume we're doing both.
Yes.
Why did you feel it was necessary to put in 2 meters here when there aren't any in the surrounding streets? Isn't it just going to push extra cars into the surrounding streets which don't have any meters? I mean, this one I really don't understand at all.
Yeah, so there's 2 meters on this particular street. One to the north are heading up towards Marmion Road, and the other one is very much along towards onto Law Road. They've been balanced there. Again, we talked around at the start of this particular process that we're trying to actually not make the walking distance too far apart for each of them. On this particular slide, if you look at where the kind of north one is at number 6, that will then also serve the northern section of St Margaret's Road, which is very steep. And because of the width in that particular section, we couldn't actually put a machine in there. So we placed it as close as we could, cut in, not causing an obstruction into a kind of recessed area that allowed us to actually make it as visible as possible, but also be as functional as reasonable, close to the actual the northern section of St Margaret's. And again, there's one to the south, and that again is serving for the kind of main parking area at the top. That is pretty much the reason why we have 2 that is in that particular stretch. We don't really want people to walk all the way up to the top, particularly if they're actually parked in the north section, which is quite steep. and we were trying to avoid anybody, parking at the top, walking. So it's just to try and balance out the walking distance between the two.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for a clarification then, people who park in St Margaret's Court, are they covered by those meters?
St Margaret's Court is...
That's the road that goes east-west, going left on the map from...
Yeah, that's a
between
private street.
It's a private street, so people can go and park there and not pay.
Yeah, that's private. That's a private street. It's not been adopted by the Roads Authority.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for the officers? And again, on this application, the applicant's not making a presentation, but will answer questions if they are sought by members. We now need to move to the objectors to the application, and if the objectors could give their views on this application, please.
No specific points from me. It's all covered under the general comments.
Okay.
Specific comments about this are simply that the street is wholly residential, and the introduction of clutter is really such a great shame. The pavements, I would be really concerned. 1.2 can only be achieved if you count in the curb as part of the pavement, and on this street everybody parks right against the curb, so it is not giving a great deal of movement. And if the meters are placed against walls, it will prevent the owners being able to do any maintenance on the walls. And for instance, one of the houses, I think it's number 18, has got the most wonderful hand-carved coping with its house name in it, and so it's got to be avoided that you put a meter there, because it would just be sacrilege to do that to anybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Yep.
In terms of the views from there across to Glebe House and to the field, it's a shame that you're now going to visually impact on that street with 2 parking meters. And it crosses my mind, this could be the only place in Britain where you have a parking meter to look at sheep grazing in a field. You're taking a rural environment and turning it into an urban environment with 2 parking meters. I think that's unnecessary.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there any questions for the objectors? No. Okay. We now need to move to representations from members of the committee. Councillor Furley.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, my main problem with this one, apart from the normal, is that if you have the meters here, I go back to my question about St Margaret's Court, the residents or anyone who parks on St Margaret's Road will see the meters and will just turn into the private road and park there for free. So I'm not really quite sure why we actually need these meters here at all. So I will be voting against the officer's recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? If no other comments, I'll just like to make one, and it's obviously to do with the private road. People can go in and use that private road anytime they want just now, and having visited North Berwick during the Fringe by the Sea, that road was full of cars. It was not fair to park on that street at all. It was full. So there are issues around for the people who have got ownership of that private road just now, because people can go and park there. I think that the proposal here is an expansion of cars moving out from the town centre who can't get a parking space in the town centre. They're moving out from there, parking in this residential street, and we can't prevent them from parking there. But we need to control it and manage when people are parking on the street. and that's what the parking system is about to achieve. So I support the recommendation. It's in the paper today. Okay, could I ask the clerk to move to a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Could members indicate their vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent? Councillor Hampshire,
Vote.
Councillor Cassini,
Support.
Councillor Findlay,
Against.
Councillor Forrest,
Support.
Councillor Gilbert,
Support.
Councillor McGinn,
Support.
Councillor McIntosh,
Support.
Councillor Councillor MacLeod,
Support.
Councillor McMillan,
Support.
and Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. That was 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 8, please.
Item 8 is planning application 25/00365/P, and that's at Westgate, North Berwick.
The officer give a summary of the report, please.
Certainly. So planning permission is sought for the installation of 2 parking meters at Westgate. There's been 12 objections received to this application, and the Community Council also object. It's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and is recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions of the planning officer? No. Okay, again, the applicant is not submitting any comments on this, but is willing to answer any questions people have got in the application. And if there are no questions, we can move straight to the objectors. Objectors, any comment on these 2 proposals?
Yes, thank you very much. To my mind, these 2 proposals are really the worst example of using copy and paste to achieve a total whitewash in the assessment. When you read it, you really have to wonder whether the planners have even seen the site. I quote from the assessment. The proposed parking meter to positioned on the footway at the corner of Westgate with West End Plate would be used as a relatively small structure with a background of a boundary wall, which is a nice stone wall, half the height of the meter. And the larger buildings it would be positioned to the front of, which are largely hidden away behind big bushes. It would be seen in relation to other street furniture in the form of directional signage poles and street lamps, with which there would have a visual relationship. And all of these are extremely slim compared to the bulky meter. And it would also typically be viewed in the context of parked vehicles, which are nowhere near on that side of the road. Then going on, the proposed parking meter to be positioned on the south side of the road at the corner of Westgate to Bank Street would be viewed as a relatively small structure with a backdrop of a boundary wall. And this one is even lower, is a very low, nice round wall allowed alone. And the larger buildings it would be positioned to the front of, which are again quite a bit away. It would also be typically viewed in the context of parked vehicles. And again, the nearest ones are on the opposite side of the road and not in view of the meter. And it would be seen in relation to the other street furniture in the form of litter bin, benches, planters, and a decorative pole, with which it would have a visual relationship. You've been at the site yesterday. You've seen what a pleasant place it is to sit. When I went round and took the photo that you've seen in our submission, there was a mother sitting there nursing her baby, the pram there, the daddy there, and a child playing there. And it was because it's such a nice place. And then have this big grey and black structure in the middle of it. I think, again, it's criminal. Sorry.
Okay, any other from the objectors?
Yes, I'd like to simply augment what the Community Council has said and say that in inset B, which is the amenity area on the south side of the High Street at the corner with Bank Street, that is a very pleasant amenity area. And whilst there is some merit having suggested that a cabinet shouldn't crowd the footway there. It is absolutely inappropriate and fundamentally wrong to suggest that that site is disguised by parked cars. It's got double yellow lines. There are no parked cars which disguise and would hide that. And parked cars being something that's put forward by a planning officer is sloppy planning, I'm afraid. You don't disguise elements that don't look nice by saying there will be parked cars there. That just doesn't cut the mustard.
Especially when they don't exist.
The other corner is wider. There isn't an issue of not enough space, but there are planters and things there. And in both cases, once again, there's the question of maintenance. You prevent maintenance by where you're putting these things. So I just think that's a wrong approach and it's not been thought out.
And I'd like to certainly echo that as well. I mean, these two locations are a prime example of the conservation area at its finest. It's untainted by any other structures, and we're now going to put two megaliths, these parking meters, which are small, insignificant structures apparently, but they're 1.5 meters high. There's a low wall there. There's some very well maintained gardens, some very pleasant buildings. There's nothing else there other than seating, a bin, which is obviously a useful amenity to have. And now we're going to have two parking meters within the area. This is the thin end of the wedge of degrading this area of the conservation area, and I'm sure that you will vote it through accordingly, which is extremely disappointing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the objectors? No. Any comments on the application? Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would just concur with everything that's been said by the objectors, particularly by the community council. I mean, this part of North Berwick is truly historic, and to put parking meters here, again, in my opinion, falls foul of policies CH2. So there's no way that I can support this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cassini.
Sorry, I was having trouble there. Yes, in this respect, I do support Councillor Finlay, because I saw that lovely area myself, and I just thought, I have a parking meter right there. It's not having any parking meters at all, but I think that particular site is you know, it's just not that great. Even if it was over more towards the other side of where the ATM banking hub is, it would be a bit better. But to have it where that pleasant little sitting area is, to me, it's not the best. So I would just ask, would there be flexibility to site that, just not right where the seating is?
Okay, Councillor McMillan.
I have a particular long association, particularly with the Westgate Gallery, around that area, and friends who live there. And I appreciate what people are saying, but I think this is actually a very objective assessment of the situation, of the need to control parking, and the need to encourage people just to be alert and aware when they're driving into and out of the town. I think these are well placed. I think that the point about height, I note, but I think that the overall advantage of being able to encourage people to think about where they're parking and how much it will cost them and where, I think outweighs the objection to size and appearance of parking meters. I think that whole point about people parking there already, perhaps obscuring the meters and so on, I think the benefits do outweigh what I've heard from the objectors, so I'll be supporting officers.
Thanks for that, Councillor McMillan. No other comments? I'd like to make some comments. Obviously, the process we've gone through here today there's been some criticism about locations where the footpath is narrow, still with the 1.2 metres to get through. The planners are on this location here, in the area where the benches are. There's also two planters. There's a post. I'm not sure exactly what the post is, and there's a bin, and the parking meter is going to be located right alongside where the bin is. The bin's about 1 metre in height. The parking meter is 1.5 metres, so it'll be 0.5 metre higher than the bin that's there. It's smaller in diameter. It's only 300 millimetres wide. So I think the impact of the parking meter here will be minimal on that site. The other one, it's on the other side of the street. It's on a wide section of pavement, and it won't be any obstruction. And scale and size of the parking meter, I don't think will have any impact on the conservation area at all. It's just another piece of street furniture that people expect to see within a conservation area, and conservation areas across the UK. You could go to Edinburgh, you could go alongside Holyrood House, in the car park, there's a parking meter. These things are within conservation areas and are accepted as part of street furniture that's required to control, well, certainly in the parking meters, the management of the town centre area. So I will be supporting the location of these two parking meters. So could I ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on this application?
Thank you. Members, please indicate your vote on the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Vote.
Support. Thank you. Councillor Cassini.
For the visual impact, reject.
Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan. Sorry, Councillor McMillan.
Sorry, having a quiet choke. I support. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
There were 8 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 2 votes against.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can we move on to item 9, please?
Item 9 is planning application 25/00731/P, and that's at Melbourne Road, North Berwick.
Okay, could you also give us a summary of the report, please?
Yep. So through this application, planning permission is sought for the installation of 2 parking meters at Melbourne Road. Planning permission is also sought for the installation of bollards and the formation of a curbed area at the site of the parking meter proposed on the proposed opposite number 13 Melbourne Road. There have been 8 objections received to the application, and the Community Council also objects to the application. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for our planning officer? Councillor Finlay.
Yes, could the planning officer just confirm one of the objections that a parking space would be lost if this goes ahead?
I don't think that's the case, because where the curbed build out is for one of the proposed meters, I don't believe that's given over to a parking space, because it's quite close to where there's access down onto the beach.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions for our planning officer. I'll ask the objectors to make comment on this, please. The objectors looking to make any comment on this application?
Yes, please.
Could,
Well, this is another example of very sloppy assessment, because the text for both meters is a copy and paste job. Although the 2 meters are in totally different circumstances. One is against the wall in between parked cars. The other one is the really critical one on the footpath from the bus stop down to halfway down Melbourne Road, yes. And say to they are visible in public views, but this would only be for a short duration on this beachfront location. Yes, for the easterly one, it's true because it's between the two cars. It is a short term, but all the way you walk along this footpath, one way or the other, the meter stands out like a sore thumb in the middle of or on the edge of the pavement next to the very low wall, and distracts towards the Glen and Bass Rock or towards the Seabird Centre. This one is particularly incongruous in its position. And one more comment. Peter Forsyth said in several occasions that the aim is not that nobody would have to park further than 50 meters. But the most easterly one, the third one, has been taken out of the original application. So people who now park anywhere in Balfour Street would have to pay either walk up to 100 meters to the nearest one in Melbourne Road, or go to around the corner to Quadrant to get the head ticket, which is against all the rules that Peter Forsyth explained to us earlier.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment?
Yes, I object as standard, and whilst left my plan, my helpful hint plan at home, what I did want to say about these two is that very often it's forgotten by planners and others that the public domain just doesn't mean the public street. In the case of North Berwick, the public domain is the beach, and these meters will be in full view from the beach. And it isn't just a matter of them being seen against parked cars. There might be no parked cars there. One of them will prevent maintenance of the wall, and the other possibly less so, but just adds to the amount of street clutter. Perhaps this is a game of creating a chicane along there to make life more interesting for pushers of prams or wheelchair users or whatever. Certainly the arrangements like this have not been thought through in terms of those with limited eyesight, and advisedly having had a parent who lost eyesight and being a member of the On the Move group in the area partnership, where we have a representative of the community of visually impaired. And I fear that not enough has been looked at in terms of their needs. Thank you.
But can I just add, but in this particular one is really most important about the visual impact on a very scenic background.
Yeah, I'd just certainly like to echo that. I mean, the jewel in the crown North Berwick is you visiting the beach, you're visiting the Seabird Centre, the harbour, but you're also walking along the promenade. You're looking out along the East Beach, you're looking towards the Bass Rock, you're looking at the vista, the fantastic beach we've got there, and now we're proposing to put 2 parking meters there. Now, you say they're not very high, they're higher than a car, there will be parked cars along there, they're higher than the wall. They are going to stand out like that carbuncle, that sore thumb that we were talking about. Even, and I will object to this, even if you put them on the other side of the road, then at least it would have hidden them and sort of obscured them against a wall on the opposite side. But no, we've got this aesthetic lot on the landscape that is going to darken the promenade and the vistas from North Berwick along this stretch. And from sort of responses to date, I feel that you're probably going to sign up to this. So you are the councillors that actually have life and death in your hands in terms of this promenade and this vista. So that's my comments. Please consider.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for the objectors? Councillor Cassini?
Sorry, convener, it's not really for the objectors, it would really be for Mr. Forsyth. So I'll come back in
Okay.
if you prefer.
No, if you want to ask that question, if it comes from comments made by the objector, then you can ask that question.
Thank you, convener. Yes, Mr. Forsyth, would we be able to put the meters on the other side of the road so that they're not right up against the beach? Because to me, yeah, that visual impact's a bit too much as well. Would that be possible?
Forsyth?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cassini, for the question. So the thinking in this particular space is that the first one, the mostly west position, is on the rear of a wide like promenade footpath area, and as you said, next to the actual small dwarf wall that is easily seen by the actual the individual who's actually coming to park their car to then visit the beach. There's about trying to actually communicate to them that you can actually find it quite easily and quickly. On the opposite side, there's a lot of vehicle accesses and private frontages, and you're then going to be placing them in the view of individual residents' windows and such. So we have deferred from doing that. We have moved them onto the opposite side, so we're not going to have an immediate impact on that side. So that is really why we're looking in that particular way. The second one, which is further to the east, is actually at a vehicle access point, and that is currently has keep clear markings. So what we're doing is kind of formalising the access point coming from the beach, making it easier and safe for the individual who's coming out, but also for the individual who's buying their ticket in that particular location. So that's the reason why we have it on that side. Putting it on the opposite side makes it really quite difficult to get the exact location because there is so much other vehicle accesses and windows and other parts. And one of the third one is it was made mention of is that about the actual distance. We did have a third meter on Melbourne Road, but we removed that on the back of the objection because it was placed on the opposite side and it was causing concern to the residents because it was close to their property window and people could see into their house readily. So that was the reason why that one has been moved, and we will look at that again in due course. But that's why we have a bit of a further distance on not trying to achieve the 50 metres. And that's a bit why it's a bit further on. So that is the kind of thought process and design considerations that went through. And so to answer a bit more succinct and answer, no, it's not really appropriate to put it on the opposite side. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Forsyth. Any other questions for the objectors? No. Okay, we now need to move into the debate on this application. Anybody like to make any comment on this application? No comments on it. Okay, I'll just make one. I think, obviously, I hear the concerns coming from the objectors, but of all the different objections you've had today, I think this one is not a strong objection. I think if you've got something at 1.5 metres against that back wall and you're trying to view out to sea, these small parking meters will not have any visual impact on anything that's in the landscape you're looking at. So I don't see there's going to be a major impact with them being located on that side of the street. If somebody is on the beach looking back towards the road, the difference in level, the parking meters will hardly come into view for them. So I am not in any way in support of any of your concerns about the parking meters at this location on Melbourne Road. So I will be supporting the officer's assessment that this is the best location for parking meters for this street. Okay, Councillor McMillan.
I'd really just echo what you've said about different levels, about the focus. Having, in my role of economic development spokesman, having spoken recently on the local Lothian TV and using the Seabird Centre as a backdrop, it was really interesting where the focus of the camera was. It certainly wasn't on me, it was on the Bass Rock, it was on the seascape, it was on the bay and all that was going on. And I think this is an example of really well thought out systemic thinking by our planners. Mr. Forsyth's explanation of why it's there, what was trying to be avoided. And I think, a way back to our early induction on planning, it's not just about the planning process, it's about people and place and placemaking. And I think that particularly here in a particularly, I've often thought, dangerous corner, a place where people come to visit, they're not maybe focusing on road safety. I think that the sighting of the meters and the whole kind of ambience and the kind of change around driving behaviour and need to comply with it, the sighting of these is well placed. The thinking around it is well thought out in terms of professional planning and roads compliance. So I'll be supporting officers again. Thank you. And I particularly wanted to thank Mr. Forsyth for his explanation. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Councillor McMillan, Councillor McGinn.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Just a comment, and I suppose just about this area. I mean, I'm a frequent visitor and love spending my time walking along, as you probably know, some of you know, with the dog and my grandson along the beach there, and trying to get parked is it's always rammed with cars. So trying to get a bit of turnover and getting parked there will really benefit the visitors to that, particularly that area. And I would just make a comment about planners and their work, because one of the things I would never describe them as being sloppy, and I think they're diligent and they put masses of hours into their work. And you might not agree with it, you might have kind of problems with some of it, but it's always of a high standard. And I think that's one of the merits of this committee. We have really good discussions and we're able to kind of see the pros and cons and see both sides. So I would welcome this application and I'll absolutely be supporting it.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor McKinnon. Okay, could we move to the roll call vote, please?
Members, please indicate your vote on the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Thanks to Mr. Forsyth's full explanation, I feel able to support.
Councillor Finlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Thank you. Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. There were 9 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, move on to item 10, please.
Item 10 is planning application 25/00636/P, and that's at Kirk Ports, North Berwick.
The officer, give a summary of the report, please.
Thanks, convener. So planning permission to solve the installation of 2 parking meters at Kirk Ports. There have been 7 objections received to the application. For this application, the Community Council have made no comment. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it is recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Any questions of the planning officer? No. Okay. Obviously the applicant is not making any contribution this time, but is prepared to answer any questions anybody has. There's no questions. I'll move to the objectors. Any comments you'd like to make on the application?
Community Council's not making any comments on this one. My primarily to the proposed cabinet next to the building 53 to 57 High Street. In other words, the more northerly of the two cabinets. That is a listed building. But in that space where it's shown, because I didn't spot a better drawing, in that space there are bike racks and things, and I don't see where it's exactly going to go. It would prevent maintenance of that gable unless it's set out and apart from it. So it seems to me that could be, and I looked at it very carefully last night, that could be relocated to a better position where it wouldn't prevent maintenance and it wouldn't interfere with bike racks either. The other cabinet is to be, as far as I can read it, halfway along the southern boundary of what was the county hotel site, now the Law. And I think it's a bit of a strange thing to put as a feature halfway along an elevation. They've just painted the wall and got lots of signage up on their railings, and now you want to disfigure it by putting a parking cabinet there. I think it should be looked at more carefully as well, if there has to be. I think these are harmful to the conservation area, but I've said that about them all. Thank you.
And I'll add to that in terms of, I was equally confused as to the removal of the parking. That's the location of the northern meter seems to quite squarely land on top of that parking. It's cycle parking, and there's no clarification as to what happens to the cycle parking and how you access the meeting, or if the cycle parking is lost at the location. The other one is, as you know, I'm very conscious of and raised a number of occasions, is the vistas, the viewpoints in terms of St Andrew's Church, the War Memorial towards the lodge, then the southern meter certainly will now figure within that prominent viewpoint, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, right, thank you. Could I ask Mr. Forsyth to give the reason behind the allocation of these units?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chair. The machine that the parking meter which has been placed to serve the Law car park is placed just next to at the very end, and again it might be because of the scale that we're looking at that plan. It can be positioned slightly in towards the wall, but not actually restricting the actual boundary wall for access for painting, but also not to impact upon the actual cycle racks and such. It is also in the wide pedestrian area section that it's not actually affecting any car parking spaces, and it's just in the right place for people to access and see where it is, and so they can come down without having any real challenge for conflict with different movement and such because of the wide expanse. So that's in that particular car park. The one which is on Kirkports itself has been placed. There is a little nook in the actual alignment of the wall, so it's placed at the rear of the wall. Again, giving enough space for it to maintain the wall, and it's just been pushed back in there because again it doesn't have any obstruction to access or pedestrian movement, and that's the location that's again serving the parking that's on the opposite side of the road. So that was the rationale for the placement of these two machines.
Just for clarification then, just for me, the one that's at the car park at the bottom corner there, that parking meter is just for tickets for in that car park?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. It's just for the parking in that car park. There is another machine on the high street which is under a different application that then serves all of the parking for the high street heading westwards. There is, as you're aware, no parking on the section of the high street which has recently been upgraded with and widened out apart from loading and unloading provision.
Knowing all the details here, the suggestion that could have went down to the bottom next to where that box unit is, and it would take it away from the high street, because people from the high street parking on the high street might walk through and buy a ticket there thinking they're buying a ticket for the high street. If it was moved to the bottom end, other end of the car park, and put alongside that little box, it's the silver box that's on the wall there, that might be a better location. But obviously we need to have a look at that. I think I'll support the application as is in front of us, but I think we should be having a look at maybe moving it to the south end of the car park, so that it takes it away from any concern of people coming through from the high street and buying a ticket there thinking they're buying it for the high street. So I'll make my comments when we come to comments. Okay. Any other questions or comments from members? No. Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Finlay.
So are we into comments yet or not?
Well, we're into comments now, yeah. I was just asking a question
thank you, right,
of
yeah.
clarification from
Okay.
the objectors' views.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, my comment on this one would be to agree with you, the Chair, that the position of that meter in the car park isn't ideal. I wouldn't have it on the south side because that could create the same sort of confusion for people parking on the Kirk Port. So what I would do is move it along to the northeast corner of that car park, so there's no ambiguity about what it's serving. So that would be my only comment there.
Just to give a comment on what you've just said there, I would be happy to see it moved to stop any confusion, but I think we need to leave that for officers to look. I wouldn't want to be losing any car parking spaces or causing problems within the car park itself. So I think, in my view, I'll be supporting the application as it is, but I'll ask officers to go away and look to see if it could be altered for that one. Anybody, any other comments to make on this application? No? Okay. We now need to move to a roll call vote on this.
Members, please indicate your vote against the officer's recommendation to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
I am supporting officer's recommendation, but I ask it the review the position of the parking meter for the car park.
Thank you. Councillor Cassini.
Yes, I will support this application, and also Councillor Hampshire's recommendation that we review the setting of the actual meter. Thank you.
Councillor Finlay.
Against, but also a review of the site of the meter.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor Gilbert, I believe, has had to leave the meeting. Councillor McGinn.
Yeah, support with the review.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support with the review.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
That was 8 votes in support of the officer's recommendation and 1 vote against.
Okay. Move on to item 11, please.
Item 11 is planning application 25/00360/P. That's School Road, North Berwick.
Okay, could you, officer, please give a summary of the report, please?
Thanks, Convener. So planning permission is sought for the installation of a single parking meter at School Road in North Berwick. There have been 29 objections received to this application, and the Community Council also object to the application. There's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, members got any questions of the planning officer? No. Oh yeah, Councillor Finlay.
I was just wondering how this particular meter is going to relate to parking inside the museum and library car park, as opposed to on School Road itself.
Nice. Oh, sorry.
No, that's what I was probably going to say. It's probably one for the applicant. I don't believe it's to affect the parking for the museum or library, but I'll let Mr. Forsyth clarify.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks, Councillor Finlay, for the question. So the actual museum and library is not being charged. It is actually controlled by a separate order, and that is for the sole use of for people who are visiting the library. There will be no machines in that car park. It will be controlled by ANPR, automatic number plate recognition software. People will go into the library and register their car vehicle registration, and then that's them in the library or museum and being dealt with. That is treated completely different from the on-street parking provision that is made where the meter for paying on street.
I'm glad to hear that, because I have my surgery once a month, so I just want to be quite sure.
Okay. Any other questions for the officer? No. Okay. Objectors, do you have any comment on this application?
Briefly, I can't understand why you would, as the owners of the property, which is listed, want to see a cabinet positioned against the wall, maintainable in that point. It's a curtilage structure, so that it's in the conservation area listed building. Why is a meter being put there rather than the opposite side of the road, given that it relates to on-street parking, which is what we've just heard, and has no relationship whatsoever to your own infrastructure, your own building? That's my comment.
And can I add to that? Those who are familiar with the museum library will be aware that there's an entrance and an exit, a one-way system. And there's two rather characterful pillars at the entrance and two at the exit. And there's a low wall in between them. The proposed location for the parking meter is halfway between the entrance and exit pillar, dead centre, making a frame of the parking meter with the backdrop of a listed building behind it. I just find it astonishing and unbelievable that it was deemed that that was the best location for it. You're actually highlighting the feature of a parking meter, possibly to instruct people, teach them a lesson that they need to use parking more considerately within North Berwick. But I'm rather disappointed that you've taken such a approach to that parking. And there are so many other locations it could go on in terms of across the road or further along one end or the other, but not dead centre between the two entrance and exits, exactly in the middle, framed by the columns with the backdrop of the property behind it. It's just beggars belief. Hopefully you will listen to that comment.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for the objectors? No. Okay. Also, Councillor McMillan.
Just to ask again if Mr. Forsyth would answer that question about the sighting and the reaction.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McMillan. So the reason why it's been placed at that is very much around the visibility of the actual machine, making it clear that that street is controlled by parking. So there's no parking directly outside it. It makes it very clear that where it is. And as the objectors point out, it is right in the middle, so it's right in the middle of the street. So for anybody who's walking for parking can find it in the middle of the street. So it's balanced in that sense. On the opposite side, it is all property frontages with short gardens, and so therefore placing it is always going to catch somebody's window outside somebody's property, and so it makes it more difficult to site it. At one end of the street, you'll then, if you park at the other end, you've got much further to go. So what we're trying to do is balance it. So that is the kind of rationale why we've decided that it's a good position. It's also around the orientation, and again, open skies, good sun, charging of the machine. We're not got any overgrown foliage or anything that's affecting it and such. So it's a decent location for that. So that's the kind of thinking behind it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The objector's looking to come back in, I think. Right, okay. Right, we now need to move to comments. Any comments anybody's got on this application? No. My only comment is, I think, oh sorry, Councillor McMillan.
Just again to thank the officers for the report, and particularly for the explanation and the thoughtfulness and the bigger picture being explained around the museum and so on. So again, I'll be supporting this for all the reasons that I've said on other applications.
And I'll just concur with these comments. I think the officers have done a fair assessment of it, and the property is in the ownership of the council, and to locate it at that location is the best location within that street. So I will be supporting the application. Could I take ask for the roll call vote to be taken, please?
Thank you. Members, please indicate your vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Support.
Councillor Finlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. There were 8 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you. Can move on to item 12.
Item 12 is planning application 25/00358/P, and that's at Quadrant, North Berwick.
Okay, the officer give a summary of the report, please.
Yes, thank you. So planning permission is sought for the installation of 1 parking meter at Quadrant. There have been 15 objections received to this application, and the Community Council also object to it. It's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, any members, any questions for the planning officer? No. Again, the applicant's not looking to make any contributions, but willing to answer any question. Any questions for the applicant? No. Okay, the objectors, any comment on this application?
Yes. But nevertheless, I'll quote from our submission. This particular application covers a parking meter, but also from the putting green, the path alongside it, as well as the tennis court. The site has been further beautified by the placement of the anchor and extensive planting, but a large grey and black column will substantially detract from that. So how again explicitly that it would preserve the character and appearance of the North Berwick conservation area, I find simply unbelievable. But I want to make one final comment. I used earlier the assessment. I'll take that back. After hearing all of the discussion here, it's not a sloppy assessment. It's a very thoughtfully thought through and intentional whitewash. That's what it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments?
I agree. This is a very lovely part of North Berwick. And as I said earlier, one of the key things about conservation areas is that trees and open spaces need to be looked at. The open space adjacent to where this is going to be will be impacted, and this parking meter will be a bit of urban clutter intruding into what is a very natural area. It might not be rural there, but it is very natural, and I think it will spoil it. I think it's a huge shame and one of the worst offenders in this group of meters, all of which are objectionable. It's some more objectionable than others, and this is one of those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Comment?
Just add to that. I'd just like to add to those comments in terms of the vista that this impacts on. It is depressing as to how much it ruins it, quite simply, in terms of that's quite a simple utility space leading into the park and the East Links and the tennis courts. It isn't at the moment tainted by any such street furniture. I was going to wait till later, but I feel that I need to show my hand here. I'm a chartered professional engineer. I'm a chartered member of the Institute of Logistics Transport. I'm also qualified as a chartered transport planning professional, and the convener has told me that East Lothian transport team has done a fine appraisal of these. From my professional experience of over 30 years and looking at parking management schemes, then this comes out as a new low, and it's disappointing to see that the council teams have come forward with a scheme I don't think in any other professional capacity I would have expected to see or could have supported. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I just gave you obviously your comment. I think our officers have done a really good job with the assessment here. I know you disagree with that, but I do believe that they've done a fair assessment here, and I welcome their professional opinions that they've given us to decide on here today. Okay, any questions for the objectors? No. Okay, we now need to move to comments on this application. Councillor McMillan.
Just to agree with you, because I think that area is a very important area for tourism. I've been lucky enough to attend I think it's now called the East Lothian Tennis Tournament, which in fact is the second biggest in terms of number of competitors that it exists after Wimbledon. I've been proud and to be invited by people like Lyle Crawford to attend a putting competition that's held during the summer, and I recently went with the Rotary Club to open the restored shelters down there. And that whole area is a really important access egress point to the town. And I think it is important for the safety and well-being of people who use that space that our amenity crews look after, that space that is part of the North Berwick in Bloom that has been recognised as really important, again, as the best in Scotland. And I was proud to be present on Zoom when that was awarded. So I think this is another example of thinking things through, of bringing in control measures that again will hopefully change behaviour, that again in a balanced way and in a thoughtful way will improve access, safety, well-being, and help people maybe think about using their car, where they park, and think about others around safety and well-being. So again, I'll be supporting the officers because I think it's a very thoughtful place to have it, and I think it is needed for access, egress, and to improve safety and well-being.
Thank you for that, Councillor McMillan. There's no other comments. Obviously, I think this particular location and its site within an area of pavement where it's a build out will not obstruct any people using the footpath, and the visual impact with the backdrop there, the scale and size of the parking meter will have no major impact on the view that you have of this area of open space. So I will be supporting the application that's in front of us here today. Can move to a roll call vote then, please.
Members, please indicate your vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Support.
Councillor Cassini.
Support.
Councillor Finlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor McIntosh.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. That was 8 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, and we can now move to the final item for today. Before we move into that final item, just thank everybody for being at the meeting today and giving the views. I know that people haven't agreed with the decision being taken by the committee, but we've gone through this process openly as much as we possibly can, and hopefully things will move forward from here. Could I ask the officer to give us a summary of
Chair,
the final piece?
Chair, my apologies for interrupting. I know sometimes you don't see my hand up, but I'm concerned that perhaps the objectors have lost contact with us. I'm getting a blank screen because I know they were on Ms. Gillingwater's.
I can see them, and
I can't.
You can. It must be your system, John. They're still in the meeting with us just now.
That's great. I thought I'd lost their. I thought I'd lost their visuals.
It's 2 pages.
No.
Right. Okay. Apologies then. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So could I ask the applying officer to give us a summary of the final paper, please?
Certainly, thanks, convener. So planning permission is sought for the installation of a parking meter within the car park at Tantallon Terrace. Permission is also sought for the installation of bollards and the formation of a hard standing area with curbing at the site of the parking meter. There have been 8 objections to this application, and the Community Council also object. It's a full assessment of the proposed development in the report before you, and it's recommended that planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions at the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the planning officer? No. Councillor Finlay?
More for the applicant than the planning officer, if that's okay. Have you had any thoughts or taken into account the impact that this may have with camper vans? Because further up the road we have huge problems with camper vans, but has that come into your thinking at all?
Yeah, Councillor Finlay. Sorry. Yeah, Councillor Finlay. There is a goalpost on this particular. So there's a height restrictor entering into this particular, so the camper vans don't get into this particular car park. The actual parking for the camper vans, which are mostly up at the sewage works and also the Hawk car park and such, is controlled by other parking meters, but they are not actually within the conservation area, so therefore do not require planning permission to be sought at this time. But we don't expect any problems with camper vans accessing this particular car park because the actual height restriction barriers stop them mostly. I'm not saying not all of them, but some of them get in there, and then we should have no problem with it. So quite content with that. Thank you.
And will there be any restriction on the smaller camper vans going in, or is that not possible?
No, if they can get underneath the height barrier, and again that is fairly low, and I think that would catch mostly all camper vans, and as they're classified as camper vans. If it is a small, VW caddy, then that would probably maybe get underneath it. But otherwise, all other camper vans and motorhomes would be caught by the height restrictor.
And just finally on that, will there be any, I mean, those smaller ones who can get under it, and there are a few that will do that, are there any restrictions on overnight parking?
There are overnight restrictions in here, so you can't park overnight, except if you're a local, a resident, then you can actually park in there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's no further questions for the applicant. We now move to the objectors. Any comment on this application?
No, not from me.
No.
I found this the most bizarre of all of the applications, and I'm sure that's not meant to happen. It appears to show a reorganised car park. You'll all know presently this herringbone single side with an unconsolidated surface and no marked bays. The proposal shows perpendicular with space too small to allow use. A reduced number of spaces, that's because of the infrastructure you want to put in. And the implication is that there will be a hard surface that is to be consolidated because marked bays are shown. The arrangement is wholly contrary, apparently, to the council's guidance on car park layouts. This is what the council's car park layouts show. And it shows that if you have your standard bays, which are 2.5 by 5 metres, you need an aisle of 6 metres if it's perpendicular. You haven't got that. Believe me, I know. I was there last night with my tape measure, measuring this out just to make sure you don't have the right distance. So there's something wrong. Something different, but I don't know. All I could do is go on what the plans show. So I have a question. My question is the layout which you put for public consultation correct, or is it not correct? The meter space. So I assume it's not correct, and it's something akin to what is there at the moment. A herringbone system of parking in some way with an in and an out is going to be provided, but I would appreciate some clarification on that. And as this is the last application, I wanted just to say I'm disappointed that at the end of this, that all of you seem to be experts on North Berwick and choose to have these voices all about North Berwick when you're neither residents of North nor have a voting allegiance here. I do wish that you had listened and you would listen to the people of North Berwick, but it seems that you won't and you don't, and that is extremely sad, extremely sad. And I do hope that that changes at some point in the future, because it should be that it's representative democracy, and that's not what's happened as far as this scheme is concerned. It's been imposed upon us from a great height in spite of comments, in spite of more than 50% objecting, and really would like things that are better than this. So that's my end of what I have to say.
Thank you. And if I can just add my comments. I noticed in terms of the location of the parking meter, it's on the seaward side, so it will stand out like yet another sentinel. It appears to indicate that there's a loss of a parking space. Can I ask the applicant how many parking spaces have been lost in North Berwick as a result of the parking management proposal scheme? Because during the traffic regulation orders, then we were given utter 100% assurances that there would be no loss of parking spaces. But in the applicant's submissions in 12 applications, there's a number of locations where parking meters and bays and bollards have been placed on the road space that are leading to loss of parking spaces, and in the car parks as well. So where are the replacement parking spaces? Because we can see what the ones we've lost. I haven't seen any that we've gained to compensate for that. Thank you.
We've had a couple of questions put there. I could ask Mr. Forsyth to respond about the design of the car park at this location.
Thank you, Chair. So what we are consulting on with regards to the car park on Tantallon Road is at the Castle Hill car park is the actual hard standing area that is in the centre of the car park that basically houses the parking meter and it's protected by bollards. That is what we're consulting on at this moment in time, and we are looking at a review of all the car parks in North Berwick for redesign and upgrading, but it'll happen in due course. But at this stage, that car park will stay with echelon parking. It's a hard made up surface. It won't be lined in any way at this stage. The order that is in place doesn't actually contain lining in it. It just highlights an area where people can park. In that particular car park, there will be a loss of one space. In the car park at Law Road, there'd be a loss of one space. In total, we're losing 2 spaces. For the additional spaces on Quality Street, currently at this moment in time, outside the actual North Berwick Fry, there is 1 space that is for disabled parking. The rest of it is for a single yellow line, like parking overnight and such, where we're going to transfer these into 2 additional spaces. That was part of the original order. I hope that addresses the objectors' questions. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Forsyth. Okay, anybody got any questions for the objectors? Becky?
Sorry, convener, it was just to say that it's been pointed out that the objectors were not able to hear Peter Forsyth speaking there and giving that explanation. I'm not quite sure why that was. I think others appear to be able to hear him.
I heard all of it, but have they dropped out the meeting altogether?
No,
No, still
they
there.
haven't. They're here, they just weren't able to hear Peter Forsyth. I wonder.
Can you hear us now? Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear any of Peter's contribution? No. Peter, would you like to repeat what you've just said there?
Okay. Just to clarify before I repeat myself that they can hear me now. Can they confirm that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So just to say again, what we're consulting on with the Tantallon Road at the Castle Hill car park is the actual hard standing area that is in the centre of the car park. We're not consulting about redesigning that car park in any form or placing hard surface material in there at this stage. That would be for a later date, but it is for the application and the placement of a hard standing area which would then house the actual meter and protect it with bollards. The echelon parking that we currently experience in there will be the same as we go forward. The order that we have promoted for that does not have designated car parking lining and bays marked out. It is an area that is highlighted for the Castle Hill car park. With regards to the actual spaces lost, there are 2 spaces. One will be in that particular car park. The other is in the car park of East Road, next to the tree. That space would be lost as well. With regards to replacement, currently on Quality Street, there is a disabled space next to the actual zebra crossing, and on that side of the road there is a single yellow line that allows people to park in the evenings. That will be changed to parking provision on street. That was part of the order that was promoted back in or will be promoted very shortly. But that was the changes there. I hope that addresses their comments and questions. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions from members? No. Any comments from member on the final application? I think everybody's said everything they need to say on the application on this particular site.
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Finlay. My
Thank you.
apologies.
That's okay, don't worry. No, I'm just taking the opportunity to agree with the comments made by the objectors of how disappointing it's been with the various votes today on all the applications, that my fellow councillors have not paid more attention to not only two local members who have voted against this, not only the community council, but the residents of North Berwick. I think it's rather sad that local voices have been ignored, but I will be voting against this application again. So thank you.
I wasn't going to make many comments, but I have to obviously respond to what you've just said. This planning committee, we take decisions across East Lothian and lots of different communities. We listen to the views of the community, we listen to the views of our professional officers, and we have a responsibility to take a decision. There are lots of different considerations that councillors have to take into account when they're taking these decisions, and sometimes we vote against strong views from a community, but we have to take the decision on our best judgment on what is the right decision, and on this occasion we have not supported the view from the community. So if there's no further comments to be made on this application, can I ask the clerk to do a roll call vote on the final application? And I thank everybody for your comments and your attendance and your views expressed at the meeting, and I hope people feel we've conducted the business in an appropriate manner. I'm sorry about the technology, but that's just how things are with technology. Okay, could I ask the clerk to do the roll call, please?
Thank you. Please indicate your vote against the officer recommendation, which is to grant consent. Councillor Hampshire.
Vote.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy was just cut off, but heard the representation, so let me know that she wanted to vote in support. Councillor Findlay.
Against.
Councillor Forrest.
Support.
Councillor McGinn.
Support.
Councillor MacLeod.
Support.
Councillor McMillan.
Support.
And Councillor Yorkston.
Support.
Thank you. That is 7 votes in support of the officer recommendation to grant consent and 1 vote against.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Thank everybody for your attendance. I'll ask the clerk to switch off the broadcast, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.